If you're pursuing a surrogacy journey, do you realize that alignment is not the same as agreement? Many people think it's the same and it's not. Medical testing and termination issues are some of the hardest things to agree upon in a legal contract. And very often, when these issues arise, and hopefully they don't, but when they do, they can cause the match to blow up and many problems to happen. From our Building Your Family community, this is the Building Your Family podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Schumann, author, researcher, and reproductive medicine therapist. Yes, it doesn't happen very often, particularly if you have tested embryos. You're probably in a better situation than if you don't, but it does happen, and you want to prepare yourself for any scenario. I understand that everyone wants the match to work. You've probably been waiting a long time for a surrogate, and you feel that you're prepared to move forward on your journey. Your agency is prepared, your clinic is prepared, and certainly your lawyers are prepared. Yet this match is so important, and it is so crucial that you get things right so that they don't blow up later. No one wants a problem to occur later in the pregnancy. And now, making sure that your match is right matters more than ever. Unfortunately, things have changed in our culture and policies have tightened. Women's health care has changed, and there's so many more restrictions at the very same time that the demand for surrogacy is increasing. And so it's become not only more competitive, but also more restrictive in many ways. And you want to make sure that your match is right. I have seen hundreds of surrogacy cases, and most go well, but some don't, and you don't want to be that person. I was the only therapist asked to testify before the New York State Senate Judiciary Committee to legalize surrogacy, and I've published research and presented my framework for understanding medical testing and termination issues in a surrogacy arrangement at the American Society for Reproductive Medicine's annual conference. And today I would like to share this with you. So we're going to revisit a clip from an old episode so that you can make a decision early on and not have it be an emergency. So here's the truth. Everyone on your team, your clinic, your agency, your attorneys are all going to want to find ways that you can agree because everybody wants it to work. And that is absolutely reasonable. But the truth is, it's really more about aligning values. But it's nearly impossible for four people to have the same values. So today I'm going to share with you a framework that's going to help you think about it differently. It's not going to be about how to make a decision in this circumstance or that circumstance, or when this happens or that happens. It's really about aligning your value system and making sure that everybody is on the same page in the right way. And once you understand this framework, you will see that having this understanding before you sign your legal agreements with your surrogate can help prevent a crisis. So as you listen to this clip, I'd like you to pay attention to two things. First, how clarifying your values with all parties involved can help you not only maintain your trust, but keep a line of communication open between everyone when facts change. Two, how separating decision-making from value alignment can help avoid four people trying to make a very difficult decision under a time pressure. In the surrogacy contract, you're going to see a laundry list of difficulties. So perhaps it says something like, what if the surrogate falls into a coma? Would her husband keep her body alive for the baby? I mean, really tough things. Now, when you look at the back of a Tylenol label, you're probably going to see a lot of scary things, but you disregard it because you know that this is the legalese that needs to be printed on there. I encourage you not to get too worried about those horrible things. On the other hand, you do need to get serious about them because this is a very crucial part of this choice to have this particular surrogate. You need to decide about medical decision-making and termination issues with the surrogate. And I think that although all of these things are important that we've discussed today, this may be the most important. And particularly now, with the political climate being what it is, it's really important to get on the same page. Now, how do people usually get on the same page? Usually they look at this laundry list of things and say, okay, this is going to be really tough. We're going to talk, maybe all four of us, if the surrogate has a partner and you have a partner, there are four people talking about these issues, and it's really a struggle, right? So maybe there's something that says, just hypothetically, what if the baby has some sort of difficulty or deformity? Would you consider termination? Now, you all look at it, you're all struggling, you can't decide what to do. You finally come up with the decision that, yes, we would consider termination if there was this sort of difficulty. Now, I understand that that makes people feel better to look at that and say, okay, well, we've completed that process. But the truth is that it's really more complicated than that. All of these laundry list of items are good to think about, but the truth is that there are two problems in this contract. And of course, the lawyers need to make the contracts however they need to make them. But there are two issues that you could face here. Number one is that unfortunately, there are a lot of problems in this world. We can't possibly list all of the problems in the world. There's so many issues that can come up. And yes, it is in the minority of times. And yes, if you have embryos that have already been screened, your chances are low. But I've seen it happen in my decades of experience where there were issues even with a tested embryo. So what do you do? So number one, as I said, there's a lot of issues that we just can't predict, problems that we just couldn't imagine. Number two, all of those issues are not black and white issues. They're all gray issues. Now, there may be, on a rare occasion, a black and white question. But for the most part, you're going to be faced with something that you're not going to have the answer to. So let's say perhaps the doctor comes to you and says, here's the problem. The child may have this difficulty and it may require surgery, and these are the potential outcomes. The doctor will probably not say, this child will have this problem, this child will have this difficulty, and this will happen. The doctor will probably say, the child has an X percent chance, a 30% chance, a 50% chance, an 80% chance of this difficulty. And you have to decide, what are you going to do? So now you're all faced with this problem. And how does that get processed in your mind? Well, for the surrogate, maybe 20% is too much for her. She can't even imagine 20%. That is so scary. But for you, you feel like 20% is not a lot. Or it could be the reverse. It's impossible to know how four people are going to interpret this information and feel about it, even if they were initially on the same page. It's hard enough for two people to make a decision like this. These are really tough decisions. And what we know from the research is what typically happens when people decide that they need to terminate for medical reasons is that it's hard. And so because it's so hard, they typically get multiple opinions. They go to this doctor and that doctor and the other doctor, and they are trying to figure out what to do because it's such a hard decision to make. That's understandable. This is a very upsetting predicament to be in. And hopefully none of you ever have to face this. But if you face it, you're going to be upset and you're probably going to want to get a lot of opinions. But what happens when you do that? The pregnancy progresses, and then it's even more difficult to make a decision. So what is the solution for this? Well, after many years of going through these difficulties, and fortunately not a lot of them, I've decided that I really feel that it's better to put all termination and medical decision issues into two buckets. Bucket number one is about the surrogate's health. So the surrogate has to really think about her health. Yes, she is carrying a pregnancy for you. Yes, this is her mission. Yes, it's making her really happy, but she has to take care of herself. For herself, her partner, her children, she really needs to think about her health. So if something goes wrong and it affects her health, she really needs to think, do I need additional testing? Do I need to terminate? Is this problem affecting my health? Now, bucket number 2 would be about your fetus or embryo, because this is going to be your child. And you have to decide, can I parent this child or not? Is this a child that I can raise? Are these difficulties that I can live with? And that decision really needs to be yours, because the surrogate is not going to be raising your child. And so, although the surrogate, if it were her child, may make a different decision than you would make, this is not her baby. So, I think it's really important to have a distinction between these two issues, because otherwise, as I said, somebody looks at these issues and they discuss it with their partner, and then their surrogate is discussing it with her partner, and everyone is up in arms and everybody's scared, everybody's frustrated, everybody's stressed. There's so many things to think about, and no one's really thinking clearly in that moment. And then the process moves along and moves along, and then it becomes much harder to make a decision. So it's really important to make sure ahead of time, before you start your surrogacy journey, that you really have this under wraps, that you really have a good idea about medical testing and termination issues. These are really, really important. And again, it doesn't happen very often, but you need to be prepared. And I think this is a tough conversation to have with a surrogate. It's better to have it with your therapist if possible. But I know many people who just have it with their surrogate and their partner and just decide that we have to have this conversation. We need to make sure we're on the same page. If we're not on the same page, it's much better to know early on than when she's 6 months pregnant with your child, right? You really need to decide how she's going to handle these sorts of situations. And unfortunately, the legal contract is really not going to address this issue in the same way. So you really need to be thoughtful about this and think about, yes, I have my legal contract, but legal contracts are not enforceable in these situations. No one can force somebody else to have an abortion or to have a medical test. No one can force somebody to pump. Nobody can force somebody to do anything, and you would never want to. So it's really important to think about these things ahead of time and make sure that in your match meeting with your surrogate, that you start to tease out some of these ideas if you haven't with your therapist, so that you can get on the same page, so that you can decide that, yes, if we are in these situations or when we're in these situations, we can address them. And of course, emotions run very high, and sometimes people backpedal, and that's certainly possible. But at least you would have made these decisions ahead of time, and you can move forward. And with respect to the first video, you can start to think about your relationship, and that's what you can really focus on. You can enjoy your journey, because it really is a beautiful journey. As I said in the first video, surrogates really have a special heart. Very often people come to me and say, I can't believe my surrogate feels the way that she does. I can't believe that she wants to do this. I can't believe it makes her so happy. It's because most of us are not like that. Most of us are not equipped to do this sort of thing. But these surrogates are. They're really wonderful people, and they really want to do the best for you. So let's think about doing the best for them and also the best for you by thinking about some of these issues ahead of time, really arming yourself with the structure that you need to have a good relationship and to make sure that by the time that you get to the legal contract, all of these issues are sorted out. You don't want to have to go back to the legal contract later and change them. You want to make sure that this is all done before the legal contract is set, and that you can tell your lawyer what everybody intends. So as you can see, under pressure, people don't follow templates. They don't follow legal agreements, which aren't enforceable anyway. They follow their value system. Their value system is the rudder that they live by. That is their North Star. And they will follow their value system always, particularly when things are tough. And that is why clarity around your values is much more important than committee decisions. Everyone on your team will be trying to do the best job they can. It is your job to advocate for yourself. And it is so important not to confuse agreement with alignment. In surrogacy, medical testing and termination decisions are really difficult. And that's where a lot of pressure shows up in relationships. So make space for every voice. I understand that you're eager to make this work, but it is so important to make sure this is sorted out way ahead of your contract. Everyone needs to be heard and everybody needs to hear everybody else's values in order to make sure that the match is correct. That way, if something goes wrong, and hopefully nothing goes wrong, there will be clarity under pressure rather than confusion and disagreement. If this helped, make sure you subscribe and feel free to binge the Surrogacy playlist. If you'd like a deeper dive, make sure that you join our community. We have tons of resources waiting for you there. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next week. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful to you. And if you'd like more personalized support, more information, and more education, you can find it in the show notes under the Building Your Family community. We'd love to see you inside. And if you were interested in today's topic, you will really like this video.